Good evening, adventurers, and welcome to today's episode of Goodberry Cafe, which is the little warm cafe where everyone is welcome to come in and pull up a chair. And today we're serving up a cup of inspiration, so I hope you'll come in and stay a while. My name's Jem, and I'll be your host for another evening at Goodberry Cafe. Here at the cafe, which is usually on the second Monday of the month, but we had a slight adjustment this month. I invite some friends to join me in trying out new, weird, unique, and creative indie tabletop role-playing games. And this virtual cafe is meant to be a warm, safe, inviting space where my guests and I feel comfortable learning and stumbling our way through these games that we try out together. So today, we're going to be playing a GM-less narrative one-shot game called Ikigai, One Tiny Life, which is a really cute name. It was born as an entry for the 200-word RPG challenge in 2018 by the author Alessandro Pierotti of Unplayable Games into a full-grown game later on. So we will all be collaboratively be playing as Iki, which is a tiny fey creature whose life begins and ends in the span of a single day. We're going to be born, grow up, mature, grow old, and eventually pass away. So with a full life that's rich and vibrant and flowing with the hours of the day. So Ikigai is a game about finding meaning and fulfillment in the little things. It's about courage and discovery. It's about how life is transient and how this is not a bad thing. It's about beginnings and ends, about growth and rebirth, and about how grand and epic a tiny life can be. And that's from the description of the game. Anything can happen in the course of play over this evening, but as a content warning, this game does contain themes of death. And I'll have the mods link the game in the chat. It looks like it's already there. So if you want to check it out yourself, you can see it there. And like usual, I'll try and talk through some of the rules as we play and before we play, but remember that we're all learning together, so have patience with us. Before we jump into the action, I want to introduce you to your guests at the cafe tonight, and starting with Zoop. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Zoop or Supriya. You can find me as Zoop Machine pretty much anywhere you look. Including Threads, Blue Sky, even Twitter, TikTok, whatever. And I also have a card, zoopmachine.card.co. If you want to see what I'm doing, I really like playing games with lots of cool people.
Thank you.
And I'll
Vince.
popcorn it to Taylor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm Taylor, aka Spunky Taylor. She, her pronouns. Very excited to play this game this evening. And I'll popcorn it to Forrest.
Hi, I'm Forrest. My pronouns are she, her. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Recovering Academic. And I love tiny, cute things and existentialism and death. So very happy to be here. I'll popcorn it to Rain.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Rain. I'm the person behind all the socials for the Hammer of the Gods podcast and Rainy Day Games. I make games, I play games. Just here to be gay and have fun. Let's see, I think there's only one person who hasn't gone, right?
Yeah, Vince.
Well, I'm Andrew Vincent, but that's what I went by college, where I went. Oh, can you hear me?
Your
Can you hear me?
It's cutting out.
Really low and
It's
cutting out.
Okay, 1 second. Try this way. Can you hear me out? No? Yeah?
It's a little robotic.
A little robotic?
That's better.
That's better? Okay. Sorry about that. Thanks for your patience. My name is Vince. My whole name is Andrew Vincent, but I went by Vince in college, where I went to school at GEM. Super excited to be part of this. It's my first online game, but love tabletop gaming, so I decided to give the virtual space a try. I'm an educator by trade and gamer by night, so yeah. And you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Straight Vincent.
Okay.
Excited to be part of this.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. And I am your host, Jem. You can find me most places at Gemboree or on Instagram at Gemaginative. I am always on this channel, New Age Geeks. I play on Forging Fates, our actual play stream on Monday nights, or host this show, Goodberry Cafe. Or you can also see me recently on Castleton as Nyale, which is back with part 2 as of last weekend. And second episode is going to be this Saturday. All right, so with that, let's get into the rules of the game. I'm going to read through some of the rules, and then we'll see if we can get started. So this is a very short rule book. It's about like 8 pages of rules or so, and all you need to play this game is 8 6-sided dice and something to write down notes and keep track on what happens in Iki's life. So all you know initially is I'll tell cooperatively the story of Iki. Iki is the name of a person, a minuscule humanoid creature. And this kind of creature is so small that their babies are the size of a bean, which is like the cover of the book that you can see on the link. They are born, grow up, grow old, and lead a full lifetime in the span of a single day. So any questions that you have about Iki are left to be answered throughout active play. So you don't pre-narrate any of the details of what Iki is or the tiny civilization, anything like that. So we start by selecting a player to open a moment, and the game is told through these series of moments. There are 9 moments total in Iki's life that we'll be narrating. And each moment has a few questions to answer about a time, a situation, and a focus. And the questions aren't strict, they're just meant to be used as a guideline to offer a more natural, brief narration. But you need to make sure that all those topics are addressed before we move on to the next moment. So time are things like, can you see the sky? How does it look? Can you see the sun or the moon or the stars? What time of day is it? Situation is, what is this moment about? Has Iki seen, heard, tasted, or touched something? Has met a person or encountered a creature or taken an action or attempted a goal? Focus is this moment challenging, difficult, or painful? If it is a challenge, then you grab what's called a pebble, which the 8 dice at the start, 4 of them are labeled pebbles and 4 of them are labeled berries. And this matters as you summarize the moments. So if it's challenging, you grab a pebble dice. And if it is comforting, heartwarming, or joyous, then you grab a berry dice. And once everything has been answered, you briefly describe how it all looks and add some finishing touches to your narration and fill in the blanks. And stick close to the questions and don't tell a whole story on your own. The note taker will be writing down these things. So in this case, I'll be the note taker today. The time of day, the situation, and the lesson or memory expressed by the moment. But then a different player will jump in and expand the moment by describing one new detail about how things around Iki look, feel, behave, and evolve. And then they too will grab a berry or a pebble. I keep putting the words together. A berry or a pebble die to describe if that is a challenging or difficult detail or addition to this story, or if it is a comforting or joyous. And then only when all players have the same amount of dice can they go for a second round. And if at any time 2 or more players would like to be the one opening or expanding a moment, you have them grab a die and roll the highest score, and the highest score wins. And you expand the moment until 5 dice are taken. So each of these 9 moments will have 5 dice associated with them. After the 5th dice is taken from the pool of 8, the whole pool is rolled. And if the highest die is labeled as a pebble, which is the ones that are associated with the challenging moments, you describe an important lesson that Iki learned thanks to what has been seen in the whole moment as a whole. And if the highest dice is a berry, you describe an element from the moment that we all played that will become one of Iki's most treasured memories of his life. In the case of the tie, the next highest dice wins. So that's an important element. And then to resolve the moment, the opening player will describe how the situation ends, keeping in mind the final result of the dice roll. And play will then continue by opening a new moment. Every player must have opened one moment before anyone can open a second one, so on. So make sure everyone gets a chance to open a moment. Once a moment ends, we'll take an instant to reflect on the people and the creatures that Iki met. And was anyone standing out? Was anyone memorable? Did anyone have a proper name? And was anyone important to the moment? And if so, we write those down on our storybook of Iki's life. And it'll be important in the final phase of the game. To end the game, so after Iki's 9th life moment, the game ends with a chat where us, the players, will give answers to a list of questions that are included in the rules, and we'll get to those later. All questions must receive an answer, but players don't have to agree on them, and each player can express on how they imagine things to be after following this creature throughout its life. So, in the rules, it also has a printable sheet that lists the 9 moments. So it starts from childhood, adolescence, adulthood, maturity, and then decline for all the 9 moments. And since we are playing, this game is meant for 2 to 6 players. And since we do have 6 players, during each scene, one player will be sitting out since only 5 dice are included in the scene. And so we'll just take turns. We'll figure out or have a natural rhythm as to who that person is. Because you as a player might not want or have an idea for a scene, and that's totally fine to set that one out. But then you might have a lot of ideas for a future scene, and then that'll be one where you jump in and ask to add to the scene. Seems like it's going to be pretty interesting to see where we end up. It's a very narrative-driven game, and so I'm excited to get started. Do any of the players have any questions now that I read through the rules? Awesome. All right. Well, I think we're ready. Let me get my notes up. I think we're ready to start with Iki's first memory. Does anyone have an idea or want to start us off? Zoop?
I do. So I want to say that the time is dawn, and Iki opens their eyes and says their first words. And I think that this moment is comforting, heartwarming, and joyous.
Awesome. And then that would be a berry.
Yes.
All right. And does anyone want to add on to that one?
I can.
Forrest, go ahead.
As Iki breathes out the first words, the air coming from their lungs turns into this fine, swirling mist in the morning air as the world hears, "Happy to be here." And I believe that would be a berry.
Yeah. Anyone have an idea for adding on? I can go next
Yeah.
if not.
I was like, can we
Taylor, did you have one?
I was gonna ask him a small little recap of the situation again, like
Sure.
everyone's house.
So far, Iki opened their eyes and said their first words, and as they breathed it out, some fine swirling mist touched the air, and the world hears Iki say, "Happy to be here." So we're adding on to that scene. Any details, anything around Iki?
I believe like you will start to hear um like water splashing nearby, almost like if a little waterfall is nearby the area. It was a berry.
Yeah, I would say that's a berry. That means we have only one berry left to use, and then 4 pebbles. So one of them moments left has to have, or yeah, at least one of the moments left has to have something challenging or scary.
I mean, I can go.
Okay.
I think that Iki, saying these first words doesn't get any response.
Yeah. Ooh. Vince, do you have
Can I
one?
pitch in?
Yep. This will be our last one for the moment.
Yeah. So in searching for a response to speaking out into the world, Iki tries to move and to find a response, and with very shaky legs as a newborn, doesn't quite make it to the first step and kind of falls and scrapes their chin on the ground, with very newly formed limbs. And yeah, so that, I guess that's a pebble.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, and that's all 5 additions right now. And so everyone who contributes could roll 1d6. I've kept track of which ones are pebbles and berries, but we're gonna see who rolls the highest. We've got a 5, 1, 1, 2, 2. All right. It looks like the 5 is the highest. So the highest was a berry, which means we should describe an element. So the opening player, I believe, so players, this is where sometimes the rules of these games are a little ambiguous, and so it's up to us to figure it out. And Vince, I think you're echoing a little bit. So this one says, once the whole pool is rolled, that if the highest die is a berry, describe an element from the moment we just played that will become one of Iki's most treasured memories. So is the opening player the one that describes that, or the player who rolled the berry?
It is super unclear. That is.
It looks like the opening player will describe how the situation ends, keeping in mind the final result of the die roll, and this
You're right.
ends the moment.
Yep. I think it is the opening player then that describes that element from the moment that becomes Iki's treasure memory.
Person. What if we include the 6th person and have the 6th person describe the either the lesson or the moment?
Oh, I love that. Okay, that would
That's
be me.
precious. I love it.
That awesome. All right. Then as the 6th person in this scene, the moment that's going to become Iki's treasured memory. I'm also taking notes as I write. Is Iki's going to learn curiosity through not only trying to find out what is around him and looking around and trying to search for something to get a response back, but also as he hears the water splashing by, he's wondering what is that, and he wants to go see what that is. So he's gonna have his first little moment of curiosity. That's going to be something that sticks with him.
Should I then describe how the situation ends?
Yeah.
Okay. So far what we've had is Iki opens their eyes and says their first words. Their first words swirl into the fine mist of the morning, and you hear "happy to be here." You being the people knowing the story, because we don't know that anybody else has really heard this. They hear water splashing to the side, and when there is no response, they get up, maybe try to move towards the water, and fall and scrape their chin. But I think after they fall and they scrape their chin, they manage to get back up and make it to the water's edge, and a fish pokes its head out of the pool that the waterfall is flowing into and says, "Happy to meet you."
Awesome. Great. And that ends that moment. So we're moving on to an adolescent moment. And I think now I've got a sense of how this goes. And I think, how are we feeling, players? Are we getting how the rest of the game goes? Cool. It's very cute so far. And I love the addition of including the 6 player. All right. Does anyone want to start the adolescent moment?
I can.
Go for it.
The sun is higher and warmer, and the mist has disappeared. And Iki stands with confidence, holding a small loop of grass, eyeing a lightning bug. Or a firefly, depending on your regional variants.
And would you say that's a berry because it's confidence?
Yes, it will be a berry.
Nice.
And to expand, I believe as they follow, try to catch lightning bug, they will run into a bush, and then more lightning bugs and fireflies just starts showering around them. I think that's I don't know. It could be either or. If it could be terrifying or not, I don't know.
How do you feel it is? What is
think
he feeling in that moment?
I think he's probably feeling startled. There's more.
Yeah.
So I would give it a pebble.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go next.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that so if I'm saying something that doesn't fit, because I had to just take a phone call real quick, but I think the thing that we didn't mention is that Iki is about the size of these lightning bugs, these fireflies, and they're trying to catch one to ride them to seek their fortune, and they do. They manage to lasso a firefly and get on for a ride.
That'd be a berry.
Yeah.
I
could follow that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, if you had something, go ahead.
Sure, I've got one. Or unless you want to roll for it.
It's up to you.
Yeah, let's roll for it.
Okay.
All right. Oh, you're probably gonna beat me.
I got a 3.
I got a 1.
Oh no.
All you.
Okay. So climbing onto this lightning bug. It goes slow at first, but then very, very quickly speeds up. And probably is a little bit exhilarating, but also incredibly terrifying. Because they just went from stumbling with their first steps to now zooming through the sky.
Say that's a pebble.
Yeah. It could go either way also, but I think that's fair.
I can go next. This will be our last one of this moment. So teenagers do a lot of things without thinking, and Iki is no different. So on this speeding lightning bug, Iki goes to try to correct and try to make the lightning bug slow down. But unfortunately, that angers the lightning bug, or I don't even think Iki knows what anger is yet. But the lightning bug doesn't like that Iki's been grabbing onto it and trying to make it go slower or control where it was going. And so it starts to zoom off in different directions, erratic directions, and Iki actually ends up falling off the lightning bug mid-flight. So thankfully it wasn't that too high above the ground, but he falls down into a patch of leaves. And that's definitely a pebble.
Okay, so as a 6th player, help me out here a little bit, please.
Yeah, because we made up this one, our roll. So the next thing is we're all going to roll our D6s, and then whichever one's the highest one is either going to be a treasured memory if it's a berry, or an important lesson that Iki learned, which is a pebble. And you're going to be the one that says what the lesson or the memory is. Awesome. So everybody roll your die. Cool.
And I'm not rolling, right?
No.
Okay.
Oh, we got 2 6s.
Oh.
So so Taylor
had a pebble. So the result is, so the reason why the 6s didn't win, it says, in case of the tie, the next highest die wins. And in this case, it was Taylor's 3. And so that was a pebble, which means this is an important lesson that Iki learns thanks to this moment. So that's on you, Vince, to tell us an important lesson.
Okay, so as Iki tumbles down because of gravity, learns a second lesson about gravity, I guess. Through the trees and the bushes and the leaves. Thankfully, they all sort of soften. Each time it hits a leaf, it sort of softens and slows down a little bit. And so finally, he tumbles into the brush and hits the earth, but not without some bruises and some scrapes. Because of its first tumble with gravity. Iki is now no stranger and can respect the laws of nature that it's been thrust into, but will now consider carefully how it proceeds into the world, given this new knowledge of Newtonian physics.
And then Forrest wraps up the scene.
So to close the moment, Iki slowly sits their head up, gives it a little shake, stands to their feet, brushes off their arms, and gives a big sigh, followed by a smile, as they look off across the river, wondering what adventure will find them next.
Love it. All right. The next the third moment of adolescence, or the next moment, which is the still in adolescence. If anyone wants to start that one.
I'd love to start.
Go for it.
So now that Iki has explored the air and the water, it wants to explore some different things. So after wandering around for a bit, and now that as the day has begun to progress a little bit and the sun is nearing midday, realizes, oh, kind of hot. So as Iki wanders around, it notices a little burrow in the earth, and decides to poke around and explore in the burrow. And I guess the exploration can be a berry.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed that's interesting is they in one place the author calls it a lesson, and in the rest of it they call it a quality. So maybe we should just say both, just in case. So, what would you say, Vince? What would you say the quality that Iki displayed in the last moment?
Yeah, Zoop, thank you for that. I think the quality of curiosity called Iki to explore this new unknown.
Yeah. I can add to the burrow scene. All right. So he's poking around in the burrow. It's cold. It's cooler than above ground, and suddenly it seems like the world around Iki is shaking, and there's a loud rumbling noise. And Iki once again gets a sense of that fear that he had, similar to when he was losing his balance on the firefly. I'm going to say that's a pebble.
So the rumble continues and grows and stops as the earth parts. And what Iki somehow knows, though they're not sure how they know, a mole pokes its head out and smiles. And I'll call that a berry.
And when the mole pops his head out and smiles, I think Iki will look at it and said, "Happy to meet you." And just smiles back to have someone there. So I'm gonna call that a berry.
Go.
Mhm.
The mole's star nose gives a little wiggle as it bows to Iki, and Iki notices a leaf-fashioned hat on its head, and immediately, in return, asks, "Can you teach me how to make one of those? I would like more shade." And the mole gives a curt nod. Do we have a berry left?
Yeah.
I will take a berry.
Yeah, we've been doing pretty good at being fair on the berries and pebbles. All right, and that's 5 for that scene. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can roll our dice. looks like 5 is the highest. And so that's a berry. And so Rain, if you want to describe the
Yeah.
memory.
Yeah, so I think that this badger teaches Iki how to make this hat, and they just spend some time relaxing in this burrow.
And I think this is a point where I'm going to ask a question like that it has for resolving a moment. So this creature, this mole, does it have a name? Did Iki find out a name from this mole?
That's a good question. I feel like somebody else should answer that. If anyone has any names.
And can the mole be named Pablo?
Yeah, sure. Pablo the mole with the leaf hat. Love it. Awesome. And then with that memory, that treasured memory, Vince, if you could describe how that situation ends.
Yeah, so after Pablo shows Iki how to create this hat, Pablo goes, "Well, there you go," and sees Iki off. And before that, sort of takes him around the burrow and shows him a few other little odds and ends, some little collections of berries and rocks, and other things that Pablo the Badger collects. And so Iki emerges back up into the world from the burrow, with his newfound hat and a little bit of a newfound confidence that his little head won't burn in the hot sun. But notices that the hat gives him a little bit more shade and cover. And so with that, he looks up at the sun and sort of makes a mental note at the change in its position, and gives his little hat a nod to Pablo one last time as he sort of makes his way to his next venture.
Awesome. And we did get a hydrate or die redeem, so everyone should. If you have some water, some beverage, it's it. The next moment is the first one of adulthood. I have an idea to start if anyone. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start. Iki with his new leaf hat, feeling stylish, feeling good. As Vince mentioned, he looks up, he notices that the sun is bright and hot, highest point of the day, and he's strolling off away from the burrows, wondering what he's going to encounter next when across this stream that's to his right, he sees a glimpse of someone else who looks a little bit like Iki. And I'm going to say that that's a berry because Iki's feeling good, feeling great. He's got a new hat. And then sees a potential new friend. Who knows? We'll see. Yeah.
Name is Peony, and she's been wandering since dawn broke. And this is the first other person she's met that looks like her.
And how did oh, well, would that be a berry or a pebble?
It's a berry.
Awesome.
And I think Icky would offer, will say, happy to meet you, and then will offer, be like, would you like me to help you make a hat? And have an arts and crafts moment of making a hat.
That's so cute.
A berry.
All right, we have one berry left for this scene.
I can go next. So Iki works with, her name's Peony. Okay, so Iki works with Peony to try to craft a second hat. And because Iki's still a beginner himself in the arts of hat making, it doesn't go quite as well as with Pablo. It comes out, but it's not nearly as good. At this point, Iki's sort of forgotten some of the finer details and mechanics. And so although the hat is made, it's not quite as good. So Iki says, I'm really sorry, but you know what? You can have mine. And he takes off his hat and hands it to Peony. And because it was not quite the success that he was hoping for, that one's a pebble.
Yeah.
He was
And
hoping
we
to
still have
modify
one
it.
more, right?
Yeah, we have one more berry.
Okay. So I actually have a pebble moment in mind. I think as Iki goes to hand off this hat, the pair of them can hear this like buzzing sound, and a grasshopper swoops down and takes the hat.
Oh no. All right, so we have 5, so we should all roll our dice. I hope we got a 6. Let's see. All right, the 6, which is the pebble, wins. So Iki learns a lesson or quality. And Forrest, if you can describe what Iki learns from this moment.
Iki, in this moment, as they've put in their new craft to work for the first time for someone else, to share a part of them, something that they have internalized and want to give to others as they were taught. Seeing it taken away by a grasshopper, at first looks shocked and then slightly forlorn as they realize how quickly time and effort can be swept away by the unknown. And Peony sees him and gives a little chuckle, lifts up his chin, and boops him on the nose.
Oh.
And what quality that she sees in him at that moment?
Iki feels his emotions deep and big.
And to wrap up that scene, Iki wasn't sure if he should be offended by the boop or not. But then Peony quells his worries, quells his emotions, and says, "It's okay. We can try again. Do you want to explore together?" And Iki is excited to have a new friend to explore with. Iki and Peony taking on the world. Awesome. The next scene is still adulthood.
And we're on scene 5 now?
Yep.
I think it's Taylor or Rain.
Oh yeah, you're right. Because everyone should start a scene first. Awesome.
Oh, that's true.
I think
Go
the
ahead, Taylor.
start. I think the start of it will be Iki is trying to make a makeshift picnic for Peony, so they can have a nice hangout together, trying to grab berries and anything to make a makeshift picnic. And it's a very kind of open moment. But it's like it's sunny out
Mhm.
at this time. Not too hot. I think it has a nice little breeze this time.
I can go. Because we have established that Iki is very small. As they're like trying to gather these berries, they're as big, if not bigger, than they are. And I think that they're pulling on it, and it just kind of knocks them down. They're not hurt or anything, but it's just embarrassing and a little bit awkward as they're smooshed temporarily by this very large berry.
Oh, that's a pebble.
Yeah.
So Iki and Peony sort of go forward and collect a few more berries and get somewhat better at them, although they're still pretty awkward for tiny creatures that they are. So they finally feel pretty good about it and feel ready to partake. And they give each other a look and say, "Let's eat." And they each take a bite of the berries that are in front of them. Peony's is a blue one, and juice sort of dribbles all over her face, and she goes, "Yum! This is great." Iki's, however, is red, and the juice hits his tongue, and it's pretty sour to his tongue. This is, of course, a new sensation for Iki, and the sourness like really surprises him as he sort of comes to terms with what he's tasting. So that, I think, is a pebble.
He learns he doesn't like sour.
I can go.
Mhm.
He looks to Peony. I believe this may serve better use than food, as he quickly finds a small flower petal, like from a white daisy, and begins to draw with the berry juice a line, and then a couple small dots, calling Peony over to show her the place of his birth, the burrow of the mole, and their picnic spot. And she takes the juice from her berry, drawing in the places that she has explored. And together they admire their map while they have their picnic, and the sun continues to beat down with the sun kind of dappling through the trees around them.
So cute.
That's a berry, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you have one.
No, nose game. It's
Oh.
all you.
Oh, okay. I have to think on this one. Whichever of us comes up with addition first. Do they have hands? Do Ikis have hands, right? Okay.
I don't know why I'm imagining like little nubs, but they probably have hands.
um, yeah, I'll go. So this is a beautiful moment. They've made this map together. They're seeing this space that they've explored already, and sharing about what they've seen. And there's a moment where they're both like observing the map, where their hands brush against each other, and it just seems natural that Peony goes and grabs Iki's hand and holds onto it and turns to him and says, points to a point on the map that's off of their painting, off of what they've worked on, and says, let's go there next. And it's just this moment of connection. And that's a berry. And I think that's 5. So let's roll our dice. Oh.
So,
Wow.
Taylor, what was yours? No, berry or pebble?
Berry.
Yeah.
Okay. The memory that Iki holds from this moment is the memory of Peony's hands moving across the petal, drawing her place of birth and her journeys, and how mesmerized he is by her movements.
And to end it, I think it would just draw a line to like a empty area and a couple of question marks, just indicating that like we have much more to the unknown that we need to explore together. To end it there.
Awesome. And then our next moment is adulthood. Still, and I believe that's Rain.
Yeah, and that's perfect because I actually have something this time to start off. As they have finished their drawing, they're just kind of relaxing, enjoying the afternoon sun. They hear kind of a rustling sound, and then see coming through the blades of grass this woolly caterpillar, and it kind of comes up to them and seems like it's offering them a ride. And I would definitely say that's a berry.
I think that Iki really valiantly accepts this ride and hops on, and he's doing everything to be so, like, you know, cowboy, knowing how to get onto a horse. He doesn't know what a cowboy or a horse is, but he feels that is a movement that is sure to strike the fancy of Peony, and he reaches out his hand to take her and pull her up. And that's a berry.
I can go. They begin this journey on the caterpillar and realize that the movement up and down, side to side, over petals, across dirt and mud, that the terrain is tricky and it is difficult. And they begin to kind of lean on each other for balance as they make their way more quickly to these new adventures that they just decided that they wanted to go on. And Peony at one point gives him a little bit of a giggle. This is harder than I thought it would be. And he responds, it is. But I am happy to be here with you. And I will make that a challenge to stay on the caterpillar. So that is a pebble.
Yeah. So. All right, I can go next. Ultimately, after it seems like forever, they watch the sun drop a little bit more in the sky, and the caterpillar finally comes to a stop. It's a pretty clear, like open area. There's less trees than there was before. There's no stream next to them. They don't know how far they've been since the movement of the caterpillar has thrown them all off balance. But the caterpillar leans over as if to let them off, and they dismount. And Iki, again, dismounts the caterpillar confidently, but Iki is now very familiar with gravity, and I think we've come to terms that he's a clumsy little guy. So he tries to be confident getting off his caterpillar, but finds himself a little motion sickness and definitely stumbles, but tries to make it seem like he did it on purpose. And I'm gonna say that's a pebble. One more for the scene.
I'm like in the same Penny would laugh at the moment, bringing in good light into it to not make Iggy feel so like insecure about it all, and just like holds their hand for the moment and just enjoy the quietness for right now for the night. I think it's a berry.
Mm-hmm. All right. And that is 5, so we roll ours. Oh. Okay. We have 2 6s, so it goes to me with the 5, which is a pebble. So, Vince, if you tell us what lesson and quality was learned from this moment.
Yeah, so as Peony helps Iki up and sort of laughs it off, his silliness, ridiculousness of getting off the caterpillar, he brushes himself off, and they sort of sit there together and have a nice laugh together. And Peony goes, "Wow, that was quite a journey. Um, who knows where we are now?" And Iki takes a look in as well and thinks about all the different areas that they've sort of rumbled upon when they had their bearings and the sort of movement of the caterpillar that could barely be, you know, focused. And he sort of takes that in as well. And I think even with all of the creatures that he's met so far, he says, "I'm really glad that we met that caterpillar. Who knows where we'd be by now if we didn't?" And so I think this lesson is categorized by Iki trying to find the good in the situation.
Yeah, and I think to close out the scene as they sort of survey the area around them, like you said, it's pretty open, but they can hear laughter and voices.
I love it. All right. This is a super short game. We only have 3 scenes left before we start closing out Iki. So we have 2 scenes of maturity and 1 scene of decline, and then we talk about Iki's final moments. Oh, nuts. So the next scene is maturity. Anyway, yeah. Zoop.
Okay. So at this point, the sun is, starting to dip towards the horizon. It's not quite there yet. And Iki finds himself and Peony in a village of other small people, and they are dancing, and I'm going to make that a berry. I should really do a pebble sometime, but that's a berry.
So as they approach this village, all of the tiny people dancing, they notice that each one of them is holding a large seed, almost what would look like a mustard seed, as they twirl around and are celebrating growth and life and potential. And as they approach, they are offered each a seed. And it does not take long for them to accept this next adventure and begin to dance.
Very, for sure.
Probably a berry.
Yeah.
Though, I don't think there's social anxiety there, so a berry.
Iki and Peony take their seeds, give one glance to each other, and quickly nod in assent that they're going to join. So they jump right on into the big old circle. As they are exploring their dance steps, the folks around them sort of show them the way, and they pick up the movements pretty quickly. And pretty soon they are in the center, where they are. So as they move towards the center, they see that those who are already there sort of throw their seeds up in the air, and yeah, so um, as they approach, they are kind of getting excited for that moment. They've seen a bunch of other small people sort of throw their seeds up, and they're getting excited for this moment. And so Iki and Peony approach the center. Everyone's cheering them on. They make their dance steps and twirls, their spins, their kicks, and they look at each other and they toss their seeds up in the air.
Is that a berry or a pebble?
That is a berry. They're feeling pretty groovy in their dance steps.
Yeah, I think as this dance kind of naturally comes to conclusion, the two of them look at each other and realize that they've gotten very old. They look much more weather worn than they did when they first met. Much more tired. And I think that's going to be a pebble.
Mm-hmm. I've got one to add. Okay. they take a look at each other. They notice that they've changed, they've grown. But they also notice something else that they couldn't see until they started doing the motions of the dancing and mastered it and were brought to the center. Is that when they threw up their seed, while they're waiting for it to come down, it's coming down and it's glowing. There's a sense of magic, or they don't know what magic is. But there's a sense of something different and sparkly and otherworldly that they hadn't seen before they did the motions of the dance. And so they're experiencing this conflict between looking at how we've changed, but then this wonder at this seed that's falling back into their hands. That's a very good that scene. And we roll for that moment. Awesome. So a 6, and yours was a berry. So Taylor, if you can tell us the memory of that.
Yeah, I think they remember a moment of just togetherness, that they've been through a lot together, and they will start like humming to each other as they're dancing, enjoying the moment of it, of this new core memory.
As to close the scene out, as they dance, their faces get closer and closer together until their noses brush against each other. And they feel a peacefulness.
Yeah. All right. We have 2 moments left. So the next one is another maturity moment. I have an idea if no one else does. All right. Eventually, the dancing stops, and they found themselves in this village of tiny creatures just like themselves. Off to the side, there's a small fire where everyone sort of has been gathering around, and now that they've realized that they've changed so much in the day, they also see, they hadn't seen these people before, but they see that everyone kind of looks that same level of tired, and they think back to their map that they painted together and all of the places they've seen, and they excitedly turn to the others next to them and ask them about where did they come from, what have they seen, and they start to share stories about their day. And some sensory elements is the smell of the campfire gives them a sense of comfort and warmth as they sit near it.
And to add on it, I believe the two of them would teach them how they took berry juice and drew out their journey, and to ask everyone to join in on there as they draw on the ground, also make like a giant map of stories. Take that as a berry.
Mm-hmm.
As they've been doing this, the seeds have been glowing where they left them. And they see the seeds beginning to sprout in a way that tickles the back of their mind, like they have been there before. They have sprouted before. And that's a berry.
One berry left and 2 more moments in the scene.
I think that as they're doing all of this together, they ask some of the other people in the village about the little houses that they see, their village that they've built, and the other tiny people tell them this was already here when they got here. They didn't build it. I'm gonna say probably a berry.
And then one more moment, that has to be a pebble.
The thought of legacy strikes both of their hearts, and they begin to gather up petals that people have been using to make their maps. And they work together to slowly put together a tapestry, being very meaningful and delicate with the soft flowers, occasionally ripping some because this is Iki. But at the same time, knowing that there will be a world that lives beyond themselves and grappling with the present, but also this future in which they will not exist. And that will be a pebble.
All right, and we're to the point where we roll. The second to the last moment of Iki's life. Six. So we
Okay.
have a berry.
Yeah. Gosh, this is a tough one. They did a lot, but also not a lot in this moment. I think that they just spend a lot of time with their other tiny people, getting to know them and their stories about their adventures. And just enjoy that and have a nice relaxing moment as the sun continues to dip down.
I think for the memory that sticks with them. Sorry, I'm going back through my notes. Vince, right? You didn't contribute to that moment? All right. What memory from that moment?
Iki and Peony are taking all of this in, the dance, talking with all of their newfound friends, all this new knowledge about the world, this village that appeared before any of them had ever existed, and that will probably remain after they're long gone. All of the areas that they've sort of put together in this cobbled up world map on these tiny leaves and petals. They think about all their adventures, the knowledge that they put together out in the world, the creatures that they've encountered, the caterpillar, Pablo, even the grasshopper, and stupid grasshopper. They sort of have a chuckle at that memory. And they think, well, if we aren't going to be here forever, let's just make the best of the time that we have and try to leave something behind so people will know that we existed. Peony starts to tear up at that, and that makes Iki think, did I say something wrong? So he asks her, and she goes, "No, I just can't imagine a world without you."
Well, and to wrap up this scene, Iki will comfort Peony and grab her hand similarly to the way she grabbed his earlier when he was frustrated, and he will ask if she wants to go for one final adventure together, and they'll walk off away from the campfire into the oncoming night. All right. We have the last memory of Iki's life, the decline.
They walk together, more slowly than before. And then an idea hits Iki, right as the moon begins to ascend into the sky, and the moonlight creates an atmosphere of peace and silence. He turns to Peony and gently helps her to sit down, and then goes to a nearby bush and gives a branch the hardest shake he can muster, and fireflies burst out of the bush and light up the world around them.
Not a berry or a pebble.
I am going to say it's a pebble. I think getting to a point at this age and at this energy took a lot of effort and a lot of thought to make sure that they got to a place that felt right for Iki.
Iki recounts his flight on the Firefly before he hears a sound very similar to the one he heard as he first spoke, as raindrops begin to fall. And I will call that a pebble.
I think the two of them try to find shelter as this rain starts to come down, and they find under the shade of a large tree a familiar-looking grasshopper. I'm gonna say probably leaning berry. I think it could go either way because it still was kind of a scary thing that happened.
Is the grasshopper wearing the hat?
I think it's eating the hat.
Iki approaches the grasshopper and says, "Hey, that's mine. Can you please give it back?" Something just came over Iki. Doesn't know where that came from. Does he really care about the hat anymore? He's not really sure, but something inside just burned and sort of made him go have that final hurrah. The grasshopper sort of gives Iki a quizzical stare as it just keeps munching on his perfected hat and tosses half of it over and just hops away. And Peony approaches behind and goes, "What was that?" And Iki replies to her, "That was that grasshopper. You remember him?" She goes, "Oh, that grasshopper. I remember." So, in these final moments with the rain splashing around under the shade of the tree, Iki wistfully picks up a blade of grass and his muscle memory kicks in again. And this time it's not through his words, it's through the movement of his hands and the teachings that Pablo um, shared with him just kick in. And he starts to fashion a little hat again. Um, I think the memory of Pablo makes us a berry.
We have one more detail for this moment.
I think Penny will also pick up a leaf too and fold it a little bit and start making a whistle with it to help give music and light to it, doing the same tune that they did when they was dancing with everyone else during that time, to live in that memory, that moment again.
Oh.
And the berry.
So. And now we roll. Six is the most, so a pebble. And I'm the one who didn't add to that scene, so one final lesson. The lesson that Iki comes to terms with in this moment, in this final little adventure, is he has been doing a lot of thinking about his day and thinking about all of the moments that he had by himself and that he shared with Peony. He doesn't remember her learning how to make a whistle, but she must have had that experience before they met. And so he's struck with wonder and awe, and as he thinks of how much bigger the world is beyond what he was able to see, but also amazement and gratitude for the moments he's had in his world, in his tiny little world. So I think the lesson he's ending this day with, both sad and a little bit of melancholy mixed with gratitude. Potential bummer. They bring it to you to end this memory.
Iki dons the hat with the grasshopper bite out of it and fastens a new hat for Peony and realizes that he is tired, would like to rest. And they grab each other's hands and they sit and listen to the pitter patter of the rain as the night fog rolls in. And he whispers as he lays his head on her shoulder, "Happy to be here."
That got me. I'm weak.
I'm having emotions about this little guy.
Same. I'm weak in my eyes. Onions.
Those onions.
Goodness. All right. So after Iki's ninth life moment, the game ends with a simple chat where we give answers to a list of questions. So I'll read the questions and then we can talk about it as a group, I guess. That was beautiful. The first question is, how did Iki die? Was it a peaceful or dramatic end, and was Iki alone?
Are we answering that right now before moving on to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it was peaceful.
Yeah, I think his clock just ran out.
Yeah. Not alone. Next to Penny, I feel like.
Yeah, the best thing is probably to die happy. So I think Iki was happy.
Happy to be here.
I'd like to think that they were humming that same old tune to each other as they
Yeah.
passed.
The quietness that like envelops you until you can't feel your toes, and then you can't feel your body, and you're not there anymore. But it's peaceful and nice.
Yeah. I love that. For which quality will people remember Iki? That's the next question.
Quality options.
So I can go back, and I'm just gonna go through all of the important things that happened. So Iki learned curiosity through seeking response and tried to discover new things right from the get-go. His first memory was learning about curiosity. And then Iki learned a lesson about gravity and respecting the laws of nature and how to proceed in the world. His memory of learning how to make the hat and had newfound confidence and a first new friend with Pablo. Iki realized how quickly time and effort can be swept away by the unknown, and Iki feels his emotions deep and big. Iki was mesmerized by Peony's movements as Peony drew her map and place of birth and journey, and was excited by exploring the unknown together. Iki thinks and learns a lesson about all the different areas they rumbled upon and the creatures he met, and he tries to find the good in situations. He has memories of, he thinks powerfully about memories of togetherness. He's been through a lot together with Peony. And Iki learns that there's a world that was before them and there's a world that's after them. And to make the best of the time that they have. And then Iki reflects on wonder and gratitude and life as a whole. His happiness and peace with a little bit of sadness mixed in. So out of those were both the memories and the qualities and lessons.
I don't think it's quality you said, but I think the quality that I will remember Iki for is to be almost adventurous and fearless. And I think the open heart.
Yeah, I was thinking open heart too.
And I kind of went similar with the adventurousness, but Jim, you mentioned the curiousness to begin with, and I think that's a theme that stood out to me throughout.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was gonna go with. Is I feel like at every stage, Iki was curious and going forward with less fear than he could have been. So.
I think for me, one of Iki's quotes stands out as something that I'll remember Iki by, which is "happy to be here."
Mm-hmm. Yep. Also, like a sense of optimism, like finding the bright spot in situations. Anyone else have anything to add about qualities that people will remember Iki by? All right, the next question is, what do you think was Iki's most treasured memory?
I think it was the seed tossing. And then there was like a pivotal moment of like where the journey was coming close to the end, like coming together. Like I was like, I'm happy with everything that has happened, and just get to spend that moment together.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever Peony made her map and she said, I want to go there, and they finally got to that like destination of what felt like far away, and then they just had that big moment of throwing the seed in the air. It felt like a culmination of a journey together. And I also like that it's part of maturity, because I think it's really sad to think that like the good days are in your youth or in your like I guess like adulthood, as this game would qualify it. So I like that it's kind of in those later years.
I do think that Iki really treasures that moment that they remember of Peony's hands moving the paint around, and that like moment of first connection that he really felt with Peony, and like the first time they saw her beauty.
Mm-hmm. I think the memory that Iki would say is most treasured, I think it is the moment where he realizes that, like, realizes legacy, and realizes that this village existed. Somebody built it that we're living in, but it's not us. So he wants to leave something, tell his story that he existed, and share. Then not only selfishly like thinks of himself and Peony, but also shares that, leaving something behind with this rest of this little village. I love, Forrest, that you mentioned that it's sad to think of like the good parts being only like, oh, I peaked when I was younger. That I love how a lot of us have looked at the moments that are later on in Iki's life, and that makes me happy and feels relevant to my life right now.
Yeah, same. I was like, what? Yeah, like really when you were like, oh, the onions, I was like, my heart feels things going on.
Yeah.
What a good bean.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any memories that they want to that they think would be Iki's most treasured memory?
It's hard to say that it's the most treasured memory, but I think one of the more important, and as cheesy as it sounds, is the friends that they made along the way. They really did make a lot of friends and connections.
Yeah.
That's very similar to what I was going to say, Rain. I appreciated that. I was going to articulate it in terms of like the first encounter and sort of satiating, I don't know if that's the other word. Satisfying their curiosity by meeting someone new and thinking about Pablo and the caterpillar, and of course Peony and all the villagers that they met.
The caterpillar's name was Peter.
Oh, I love how you're our namer of this group.
What,
We always
what
do
about
labels.
the fish? Because we never did come back to the fish.
True.
Philandra.
I love it.
So good. The next question is, how did Iki's existence, this kind of builds on what you were saying before, but how did Iki's existence change the life of other people? And can you name someone in particular?
I mean, Peony's life
Mm-hmm.
was changed and shaped by meeting Iki and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think those little seeds, whenever they came into existence, like their first essence of being was met with this wonder of this tapestry map of what does this mean and how can I do something similar?
Mm-hmm.
I think Pablo, too, like being the first friend to like
Uh-huh.
make the hat that showed kindness for the first time in their existence. Shaped life.
Saying that was Pablo's first time showing kindness. Pablo was a curmudgeon before then, and then he met Iki, and his heart swelled like 3 sizes.
And return
love
all the
it.
presents back to Hugo.
Oh.
Well, I was going to come back to Pebble too, but since you already did it, that's okay. I'll instead go to the caterpillar, who kept crawling, eventually got up in a little chrysalis, and emerged into a beautiful butterfly. And a few days later, sort of floated around this tree with these 2 little sprouts just sort of embedded into the bark. And it kind of sat there and thought, there's something a little familiar about that. This little 2 little buds.
Mm-hmm.
Really like thinking of Peter as an Uber driver, and like how, I mean, I'm sure Uber drivers have all sorts of stories about how they've been affected by specific riders.
Yes. And like he's been doing us, like finding these little guys to amuse himself and bring them all together. Like, it's so cute.
It's like I know where you're going.
Yeah.
All get to the same village. Amazing.
Peter,
Amazing.
bringing the people together.
See, and I was
Aw.
thinking of the grasshopper. I don't think it was a major change necessarily, but just kind of that interaction maybe similarly softened its outlook on life and other creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And I think in general, I think that this little village, I think Iki's. Oh, well, the next question. Never mind. I'm just gonna go on to the next question, which is, what has been left behind by Iki's existence? This is what I was gonna talk about. Is there a mark or a token that attests Iki's passage? I think of the village that of all these little people, and how over time, I guess there were structures, there was function, there was something there to leave that these creatures have been leaving behind, and so Iki and Peony have now left behind the starting of a map, which is so cool to think about.
Well, and to echo my earlier point, I think because most of these friends that they made, other than the other tiny people, have outlived them. So I think that that's a mark that they've left, not a physical mark, but an emotional one.
Anything else that has been left behind by Iki's existence? right. The last question is, at the end of it all, would you say that Iki's life had worth and meaning, and why?
I'm actually going to take a step back for a second. I do think that there's one thing that did happen that we haven't discussed, which is I think Pablo actually opened a hat store when he realized that he could succeed in this world of fast fashion.
Love it.
Oh no. Oh no, that means that Iki contributed to capitalism in this tiny world.
You could sell these.
Oh no.
I would say
Yeah.
Iki's life and worth absolutely had meaning, if not just in the story, but for us in getting to tell this story.
Oh. Yeah. I just said this in chat. I've played emotional games before and I've felt like crying and I've staved it off, but this is definitely the first time I've actually cried on stream. So it got me. Which I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I think this is a really fun, like introspective thing, like a kind of silly way to think about the deeper meanings and connections in our lives and things like that that sometimes we kind of take for granted.
I think for me, something that struck me was just each of our individual participation in Iki's life that contributed to this larger thing that was Iki's life. And I just want to say I really appreciated everyone's contributions because it inspired me and sort of gave me a lot of ideas and like where he
Mhm.
could go and what he could do and see and offer the world. And I think that's a good reminder for me that like you can't do it all alone. Um, yeah, like all the feels like that have hit me, like sort of helped me come to that conclusion. So I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, same. I liked the mechanic because some of us got to contribute to like the more like precious moments, but thinking of those pebbles too, like trying to think of a challenge to throw in there.
Mhm.
Like it's an interesting game to kind of think of like that life has those moments of challenge and also moments of joy, and the balance is kind of through perspective. Because Iki fell down a lot, but he also got up. Yeah. So I did like that because you had to kind of like force yourself to kind of problem solve in the moment of like, how can we tell this story that's going to find that balance in a way that feels real? And I think it did.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah.
I wanted to protect Iki so much and be like, Barry, Barry, Barry. But it's like, yeah, to get through life, you need those pebble moments to be stronger, learn lessons,
Exactly.
move forward, and stuff. So, yeah, all I really wanted to do is protect Iki the whole time. But I know, like, gotta push him.
Yeah,
I'm
kind
glad I
of
wasn't the
similar.
only one. Sorry, Rain, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm glad I wasn't the only one that wanted to just like pick Iki up and like cradle in my hand and just yeah.
Well, it's not
Exactly.
bad. You're fine. Barry only.
I did like the idea that you have to have some pebbles though, that you can't just have berries. And they don't all have to be terrifying and challenging. They can just be a little bit difficult, a little confusing, a little unexpected.
Mhm. Okay. Awesome. So that was the last question in the game, but I want to add one last question that I thought of while we were playing. Um, if Iki's life had a title, like if the story of his life had a title, what would it be?
I think that's really easy. I think it's the phrase that was said the most.
Yeah.
I
I
do.
think it'd just be happy to blank. Because it was happy to meet you, happy to be here. So I think it's just happy to.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought we were gonna have like a couple. I like that one as our title, our group title. So that was so wonderful of a game. I can't thank you all enough for like being all in on this and how weird and unique of a game this was. And thank you, Zoop, for adding that idea on how to incorporate the sixth player into. I think that flowed so well. It was a very short game, but that's crazy how meaningful I felt that was. It's nuts to me. Does anyone else have any more final thoughts before we close out the session at the cafe?
Well, thanks for organizing it. It was really fun.
This was great.
All right. So then I guess it feels like we've had like this collective shared experience that I'm like, I don't know how to close this out for the night. And it's so much more early, like so much earlier than my stream normally ends. But yeah, that's Iki. Happy to. Thank you all so much again and again and again for joining me at this cafe, being willing to jump on this strange little game. And before we go, I do want to go around one more time so everyone can reintroduce themselves, tell us where people can find you, tell us what you've got coming up, anything you want to plug, whether it's yourself, friends, whatever. Where can we catch you next? And we'll go around in the same order that we started with. So, Zoop, you want to go first?
Okay, hi, I'm Soup or Supriya. As you can tell, I love playing new games and figuring out how they work and just really getting into it. You can find me everywhere as Zoop Machine, that's ZOUP, and then the word machine. I have a card, that's zoopmachine.card.co, and I think if you enjoy me trying to learn new systems and explain them, I am about to start running a run of a Powered by the Apocalypse game called Demigods, and we're going to be recording it pretty much from like start to finish, and that'll be on my YouTube at some point. So
awesome. That sounds awesome. And thank you. And Vince, you're up next in the order.
Yeah, so my name is Vince. I'm a gamer, educator. I love gaming. So when I was asked to do this by Jim, I was like, yes, I'm on board. I don't care. I'm on the East Coast, so it's pretty late, but I can make it work. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Straight Vincent. This is my first online game, so I'm probably going to be looking for some new ones after this. Try something new out. But yeah.
Welcome to the streaming world.
Thank you so much.
so addicting. It's like you pop once and you can't stop.
It might just be. We'll see.
And Forrest, you're up next.
Yeah, so I've been Forrest, I will be Forrest. And yeah, I was very happy to be here. You can find me on Instagram at recovering.academic and TikTok recoveringacademic. I do cosplays, I do TTRPG. I try to keep it light and humorous for the most part. And yeah, any upcoming projects, I have a couple of shows that I'll be a part of. And then I'm also writing my own TTRPG, going for a one-pager, so that should be out early 2025.
Exciting. Anything you can tell us about it?
It's gonna be cute and feisty.
Oh, okay. Love it.
I'll share more.
So cool. That's so cool. Thank you. And then Rain.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm the person behind the scenes, also the GM for the Hammer of the Gods podcast, and I'm super excited. I've been working with the Trans Empowerment Project ever since we did a fundraiser for them earlier in the year, And we are actually doing our very first stream for what we're calling the Quest Collective, which is basically a way of trying to spread joy, especially given the way the last couple of weeks have gone. I'm really glad that we started on this well before the election. Hope that things would go differently, but here we are. And yeah, so we're going to be streaming tomorrow. It's our very first on the Trans Empowerment Project's Twitch, and it's going to also be a similar, like, GM-less, kind of weird game that I've run a bunch called Together Among the Stars. So come check that out.
And what time is that?
8 Eastern, 8 p.m.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. And Taylor.
Hey, I'm Taylor, aka Spunky Taylor. Happy to be here. Happy to meet you all. You can, all my social medias is Spunky Taylor. If you want to see more of me, you can catch me at noon this Sunday. If you like the show Koliyoko, we've been playing a Koliyoko inspired game using the Glitter Hearts system. It's been great. If you love drama, you love Xana, you love all the jazz, crying, we cried last episode. It's been a great time. We only got 2 episodes left. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. And I've been your host. I am Jem, Gembury, most places, Gemaginative on Instagram. You can catch me on this channel playing Whisper on Forging Fates, our actual play on Monday nights, or hosting Goodberry Cafe once a month on this channel. You could also catch me as Nyale in Castleton, which is on the Winter's Tales channel, and episode 2 of second part of Castleton will be on Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Crazy things are happening. It's a massive game with over 110 creators. Taylor is also in Castleton. It's nuts. It's just wild. Strongly recommend checking it out. I'll also be at PAX U this year. It's my first time going to PAX U. So super excited. So if you see me there, say hi. But ultimately, thank you all again and thank you out there for everyone listening, everyone in the chat for joining us here at Goodberry Cafe. I hope you've enjoyed your stay. Upcoming on the New Age Geeks channel, next Monday, we're back with Forging Fates as our Fists of Fates are exploring the Feywild, and that's at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And next Thursday, we have Investigation Check, our interview show, where Joe will be interviewing Eric from Somebody's Heroes. So check that out. And I hope you'll join us again next month on the cafe, where we will be playing a game called Hometown Holiday, which is a TTRPG about romance in a small town during the holidays. So very Hallmark channel. I'm very excited to play this one. We'll announce the date on our socials. But until then, I also encourage you to follow and subscribe to our channel, join the Discord, come hang out, play games. With that, I love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.